Hello?
Hi, how are you?
Hi. How are you doing?
I'm good.
I'm pretty doing all right too. Just a little angsty, just a little anxious,
Okay, no problem.
For
So
sure.
uh so let me just start the recording.
For sure.
How'd you find out about my typing service?
I it was really just random. I just like looked up does anybody like give out like Socionics typing session? And I think your website was one of the first results. So I checked it out and I thought I feel like this guy knows his stuff. He knows his shit. So like I wanted to reach out, through cold email and all, just to, just because I'm curious and all, and see how it
Okay.
goes. Yeah, yeah. But yeah, yeah. So I know a lot about. I would say I have at least like an year's experience of like knowing about socionics, but I really can't type myself accurately because I know that I have a lot of biases going into it too. Because coming at it from someone who is trying to discover themselves and still like, not with a lot of experience, I feel like I would probably need someone who knows their stuff and can give a very unbiased, like third party perspective on it. I feel like, yeah,
Okay, cool.
yeah.
So tell me about yourself. What's important to know about you?
Well, I think I got some details first before we go. I wanted to say that like to keep in mind that I can actually like kind of like when I talk about myself, I can kind of like describe some parts of myself without describing like the bad side because everybody kind of like likes talking about their good stuff. So I can kind of tend to morph into like other personalities or traits that I want to become, but I try my best not to for this session. And also that I've been also growing a lot, like, like spiritually, like because I discovered like, socionics and other like personality typology systems and like meditation, that sort of stuff. So other than those disclaimers I was talking about, I think the first things I can probably talk about myself are, um, well, the first thing that I think jumps out at me when I look at it from other people's perspective is that people would say that I'm a very kind person and that I actually have this like aura, this like atmosphere where when people get to know me, even like strangers, like they say that I like give off a very like I give off this like vibe where like they feel like it's easy to open up themselves to me, in a way. They feel like it's easy to talk about some deep stuff. Like sometimes I heard like really deep stuff sometimes from strangers for ops without even trying sometimes. So there's just something about that I feel like we can kind of delve deeper. And one of the first things that popped into my mind when I was thinking about how can I describe myself.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what are
Uh
your what are your weaknesses then?
I guess my weaknesses is that, oh, first of all, I'm like really clumsy sometimes. Like, when like people want to expect something out of me, especially like when it comes to like practical things, it's really hard to like wrap my head around them sometimes. Like, it's really hard to, um, like for example, like I'm not really the best with technology, even though I'm pretty good with it too, because like I think a lot of people in my generation would be really good with it. But like I'm still really bad at it. Like I tried taking up coding, for example, like in college, and I was just so bad at it. I did not do well at it at all. And um like there were things like where like for example like where when people were pointing out like like for example like my parents when they're like pointing me out, hey, can you put this over there? And I don't know where to put it. I have to ask them to put them where exactly, and sometimes they gotta just do it themselves because it can get a little frustrating. That's like one example of how like bad I can be when it comes to practicality. And I guess another thing is that I guess sometimes I realize this myself too. It's that like I do kind of like um I do have like certain like talents, I could say, but those talents can be really ruined sometimes a little because I do kind of feel a little arrogant about it sometimes. Like I feel like my ego kind of gets too big and that can kind of get in the way and it turns people off about that too, about me, I guess. And people say as long as you kind of keep that in control, it's like everything else, I feel like, you know, I feel like it's easy to talk to you, but like when it comes to that part, I feel like you need to kind of tamper it down. That's what I noticed. Yeah.
What makes you like feel proud or the ego?
Um, well, I know a lot about like things in general. Like I read a lot. I like when I have a lot when I have a lot of questions about the world and about people and about myself especially. Like they kind of like sometimes it gets really bad to the point where I can't sleep because of these questions. So I kind of like look up like questions about them. And I look up questions regarding them and kind of find the answers. I have a lot of questions sometimes, like related to math, related to I guess society, like culture, politics, that sort of stuff. And when people are talking about these like subjects, sometimes I give very, sometimes a little unsolicited advice, like kind of unnecessary advice sometimes. And depending on how they take it and what I talk about, it can go really good or it can go really bad. Like sometimes I do kind of offend people for without like meaning to. I just know my stuff and then people get kind of offended because either they don't like the fact that they're being corrected or um because like I know something that they don't know and that kind of I guess touches their insecurity or something like that. But other than that, it because of that I think it's also like very hard sometimes to make friends because I think people don't like it when people I think kind of low key call out their stuff sometimes, because of that. But when I do make friends, it's more genuine than like I guess what people would call friends nowadays.
So do you try to challenge people intentionally?
Sometimes yes, sometimes no. It just comes off more often than not, I don't mean to challenge them, but I guess it feels like that way to other people. Like I just want to have a good time, but sometimes I feel like when people are a little iffy about things, like I kind of want to make it a little clearer for them too. But sometimes people don't like that, I guess.
What does that mean, iffy about things?
Like, when it feels more like their opinions about certain topics kind of are like I feel like are not as explored as I thought or not as discussed as I thought. I kind of want to discuss it with them too. I kind of like, ask probing questions like, "Oh, how did you come to think of it that way? Like, what makes you think of it that way?" Like, I want to kind of get to know how much you know about this. Like, that's those sort of questions. Because I like talking about um, like it's like I know that it's important to have small talk because like small talk kind of does help you to open up, I guess, the gate of your soul in a way. But like, I would if I could do anything, I would just like skip over the small talk entirely and just go straight to the deep talk. Basically, that's what I would do because of that.
So what kinds of questions have you been thinking about lately?
Oh. Mainly related to philosophy. I've been reading about a little, just a bunch of topics right now because I kind of want to get an overall view of philosophy before I like I guess read into more specific works later on. And then um yeah, other than that, like I guess like because I have a really good friend, like I also kind of sometimes think about like what I would do if I was in a relationship, for example, too. And there's probably a billion other topics I'm probably forgetting, but I just think about a lot of things in general. Like I'm not like thinking about one thing and just be closed off of everything else. I kind of like think about everything pretty much sometimes.
You have like a career path that you've chosen?
Yeah, oh yeah, that's a pretty long story. So like that's a pretty long story. So what's it called? I was very lost in choosing a career. I like graduated from college like recently too. And like to be very, very brutally honest, I did not know what the fuck I was doing in college. Because there were just so many avenues that I could see myself in until recently when there was a bit of a so I was like in a relationship and it kind of went off really bad. But when I finished a relationship, I think I got like a very eureka moment where I realized that psychology was for me. So like I thought like because I really like help people open up themselves without wanting to judge them, just hearing out their thoughts and trying to give the most um, unbiased advice as much as I can, even though I am kind of biased. I noticed that about myself too. But like other than that, helping people out and just really, really being fascinated with, I guess, just psychology field itself because that's how I got into like Enneagram and like socionics, that sort of stuff, because it really does fascinate me. Like I could really look into this for hours and not really feel like I'm wasting my time or I feel drained out of it or that sort of stuff, you know.
Can you tell me about your relationships with your family?
It's tricky. I think I approach my relationship with my family with the intention to try to get to know them and to want to m- repair any damages that might be there in our relationship. But it's tricky because I know some things that they don't know and they probably know things that I don't know. So when we try to confront those like deficits, I guess. There are those things where there might be missing in one person or not, like in one per like if I know something and they don't know and they know something that I don't know, like when talking about it, it can get a little challenging because for, I think for me, first of all, like when they talk about something that I don't know, um I guess sometimes I do try to accept it, but it doesn't really stick in me as much at first because it does kind of take time for me to, I guess, really take it in. But for them, when I try to talk about like things that they don't know that I know, I think especially like, you know, some especially one of my parents, I don't want to disclose like who exactly, but like he can get very like they can get very closed off and like you know not take it in and it can be pretty heartbreaking to see that. So sometimes when that happens, when these problems don't get fixed, like I don't even want to talk to them about that because it's just draining. But there are a few rare moments where I do feel like I opened up. I wouldn't say I opened up, but like get to ha seize upon like this opportunity to like get to know them better in a way where they wouldn't feel attacked, nor would I feel attacked, and you know, uh, mend a relationship, whatever there might be, and to be united among some kind of, I guess, something that we both can agree on, you know.
What is I don't know, it still sounds kind of abstract. Like what is something where like they knew something that you didn't know and it was kind of hard for you to accept?
Um, I think um I don't think it happens as much anymore because they probably told me everything that I didn't know, and now I kind of accept it. But I think one of them in the past was, oh yeah, one of them in the past was, there was a pretty bad relationship I was in, and they said, and I was like going to work, but because I had that relationship in my mind, it was really hard to let go and just stay stoic and do my job. And they said, if you can't do that, like if you can't just let go of it temporarily to focus on what you have to do at work, then you're gonna be in bad luck. It was hard to accept that because I was not used to that. I guess they're probably speaking from experience, but at the same time, even now, sometimes I feel like they should have kind of they should have kind of handled that a little better because it was my first time in a relationship too, you know. Yeah.
Okay. Also, sorry, going back to the career, I don't think we really, uh, so like, basically, what are you trying to do now with your, like, did you have a psychology degree now or,
Yeah, I actually graduated with an econ degree because
Hmm.
it's like probably like the degree you can do a lot of, like it's a very flexible degree. So I graduated with an econ degree when I was in college, but now I'm like applying to like it's a bit of a big leap. I know it can be, but like doctorate programs in psychology, that's how convinced I am kind of about like what I want to do. Either that or master's programs because I kind of leave it a little bit up to fate whether I get into like doctorate or master's programs. But like I know that like whatever it is, I know that I would be in good hand when I'm in the psychology field because like I mentioned above, like I kind of feel like I have the personality traits for it, and I also kind of have some kind of I guess like goal that I feel is compatible with psychology. Um, goal as in goal as in fulfilling like this, I guess, natural thirst for getting to know more about the, human mind and all this that sort of stuff.
Mhm. Okay. How do you deal with conflict?
Um, I deal with conflict first of all, like so I am kind of naturally a little predisposed to wanting to avoid conflict. So it starts there. But if I have to be in a conflict, I want to kind of what's it called? I want to kind of, you know, get me and like a lot of and the parties involved in the conflict away from the conflict as much as possible in the most smoothest way, most diplomatic way possible. I don't want to like continue to like fight back and make the whole atmosphere worse. And I approach conflict by trying to hear out everybody's perspective and trying to find common ground between them and, make everyone feel, you know, safe and comfortable. I want to like, uh, what's it called? Like, I want everybody to be friends again, pretty much. That's what I want from the conflict, and I get to hear out everybody's perspective. But it's hard because, I guess feels that some of the things that led to that conflict can be really, really hard to figure out. So I think when becomes really, really hard to figure out and everybody's still attacking each other, I would kind of step back a little and I would try to approach it again from a more um strategic perspective. Like I would try to come up with ideas related to the conflict online and like with talking with people who are not so involved but are still connected with the conflict and try to approach it again, with a more with a better approach, with better strategy, pretty much with everything I just talked about. Yeah.
Are there any conflicts you've had recently?
Um, mm, Yeah, I did. So there was this one instance, it's kind of minor, but my mom was like, for example, like she she was kind of pissed off that I was turning the lights on around the house a little at times. And um, she said it might be wasting on the energy bill, so I kind of had to conflict about that. But I told her, like, instead of like attacking me, let's kind of talk about this more appropriately. Like, let's talk about how we can kind of come up with a plan to, make sure that this doesn't happen again. So I have like this habit planner, for example, like I have like this daily habit planner. I could just put on my daily habit planner. Like right before I go to sleep, I'll just check off all the lights and make sure they're all off and then I'll go to sleep. How about that? Like that sort of stuff. That's one conflict example and one conflict resolution I guess I kind of proposed. And yeah, but it took a while because I needed to kind of wait for, I guess, like my mom to like chill a little and then for her to feel a little more emotionally stable and then I just talk about it pretty much.
What kind of goals do you have for the future?
Um, it's hard to say because the future is uncertain because the future always changes. And your goals will change with that. But I think for right now, I can probably confidently say that I will definitely try getting at the very least, a professional degree in psychology um, work to work in psychology briefly. But my real goal is honestly to try to also gain financial independence, to be honest, because like I want to be free to do anything I want pretty much. And uh to do anything I want through financial independence. That is like through like trading and investing in stocks. But other than that, when I'm talking about freedom to do whatever I want, the first thing that comes into my mind is probably like traveling the world because I really do want to travel the world one day too. Because um, there are a lot of cultures, there are a lot of peoples that I want to talk to and like want to get to experience like historical artifacts, historical sites. Those are the things I really want to get to explore and talk with people. That's partly why like I'm also like kind of learning some foreign languages right now. Like Spanish is one of them and later on German. So I can kind of explore the world and get to know other people. And other than that, I think I would also want to really help support, I guess, initiatives or maybe even possibly lead an initiative. I don't know how in a way, but in the future where I want to like help people feel connected because the world can be very alone sometimes and it can be very hostile. So I want to try to lead that away, lead us to a more lead people to a better future. Not in a political way, because I feel like political can be very divisive, but in a more community way, more community oriented way, I guess, in the future. And also support other initiatives like financially, that sort of stuff.
What kind of initiative would you use to
Yeah.
help people feel less alone?
It's hard to say. I guess one of them could be like a YouTube channel, for example. Thought about that too. But the reason why I feel like I would not want to do it right now is because I really still have a lot of things on my plate that I have to finish. Because, if I have too much time on my hands, if I'm too busy, like it's hard to like, um, uh, I guess foster that community. And um, when there's not enough time to foster that community, it's probably gonna eventually die, and then it would be kind of a waste of time to foster that community. So it's better to work on my stuff first and then go into fostering that community, whether it's through YouTube channel or through initiative, something like a YouTube channel. It could be anything that I feel like has a global outreach, has a little bit of a global outreach, but also, what's it called? But also like with the global outreach, but also in a way where I feel like I can dedicate at the very minimum some amount of my time because I would not want to like let it consume my life too because I do have like other things I wanted to do too, but enough for people to feel like I'm doing enough for the community, that sort of stuff.
Have you taken any leadership roles in your life?
Yeah. Um I did, but I would not really qualify them as meaningful, like as true leadership, because I was doing those leaderships without like a sense of purpose, without like a sense of like what I was doing. So I was kind of doing leadership without knowing what I was doing. The only, I guess, true leadership I would say um I've done was like helping to make friend groups, for example. Like when I went studying abroad, for example, I kind of helped form a friend group and kind of led the a friend group like when with like where we want to go, where we want to eat. And another friend group when I was like in community college briefly to take some psychology classes with friends, but you know, for the for the study abroad part, it's hard to maintain when like you're back in America. And for that community college, I just got really busy, so um, not really staying in touch as much. But although I would probably want to, um, you know, contact them again and see if we can do anything when the time's free. And I still kind of do play video games with like my with the people I met back in New Zealand where I studied abroad. I would like talk with them about things while we're gaming. That's sort of like how's going on with their life. Like they recently graduated, like for example, and I wanted to get to know like where they're going in their life so that I can try to give as much as I can in terms of help and advice.
Can you tell me about your experience in New Zealand? That must have been interesting.
Yeah, it was very interesting to be honest. I kind of wanted to go to New Zealand because like I felt like I was at a dead end a little when I was in college. I feel like there was not I didn't feel a sense of like novelty, a sense of like joy, and I felt like I wanted to give New Zealand a chance, like as if it's like a restart button to my life in a way. And by doing that, uh I feel like I really made a good choice. But that was also where I guess grew the most because I was involved in a pretty controversial a pretty bad relationship, I would say. And that has helped me grow a lot. But at the same time, I also made a lot of good friends too when I was in New Zealand, like meeting people of all other perspectives and cultures and backgrounds because New Zealand is kind of like a melting pot itself, like America. And um, you know, like exploring like the countryside a little, exploring like the city which I kind of studied abroad in, which was Auckland. And um, yeah, I guess like going to nightclubs too, just having fun, but at the same time, like getting to know a lot of people's perspectives, a lot of people's cultures, like their own tastes. That was what I was really looking into for New Zealand and what I feel like I took a lot out of. And I guess kind of fueled that thirst I wanted to travel the world in the future too, you know.
What's something you learned about another culture when you were there?
Um, I learned that there was a lot of oppression going on with the Maori people, for example. And I felt like it was very similar to, I guess, like the oppression that's going on with the minorities in America. And I felt like it's really not so different, even though, people don't talk about it as much as America, or are as aware of it.
You've mentioned a couple times now bad relationships. Can you talk about those? And
Yeah, I'll try to keep it. Is it okay if I keep it kind of confidential
of
too?
course, yeah,
Yeah.
only talk about what you're comfortable talking about.
Yeah, so um it was can you give like some examples of can you give like some questions to specify what parts of the relationship you want to understand?
Sure, I guess like what made you interested in this person in the first place, and how did it go bad? What were the conflicts involved, you know?
Um, I think the first thing I really liked about the person in general, was that she kind of like I was just like literally just eating, like, but being by myself and just watching YouTube and all. And she just came out of nowhere and kind of nowhere because not kind of nowhere because she was also in the friend group, but then I think she really liked my company and she started opening up a lot of things about her family and about where she's from. Like she's from another country. So I got to know her through that. But at the same time, I told her, we gotta be careful because like I don't want you to open too much up to the wrong person. But I'm not gonna like use that against you and all that sort of stuff. But like I really liked how she was honest about it and she was like really genuine about it. So we talked more and then we kind of had a lot of trauma that like we felt like really similar. And so that only made it stronger for us, like as the relationship went down the road. And well, at the same time, I felt like I underestimated how much like trauma she went through, and that kind of did backfire, and somewhere in the middle of the relationship. But I also had problems too that I didn't deal with that I also felt like I was responsible for. But I guess it's hard to say who was more at fault. It was just that it got so bad that like it was hard to start from where the problem was coming from in the first place. Yeah. Is there any other questions you have?
Yeah, I mean, well, not I'm not sure about maybe some other areas we can talk about, like you mentioned before, like you don't want to do a political kind of uh I guess movement or something, but is
Yeah.
that are you how political are you basically?
With the right people, I can be very political, to be honest. But like to strangers, I will try to keep it as light as possible to not incite anything I didn't mean to, like to not anger anybody. But I can be quite political, like, but I also at the same time, actually, I take that back when I said I was very political. I'm political in a way where I'm more like a centrist because I like to kind of like see from everybody's perspectives. I don't want to like side one side too much. Although I would say I'm a bit more left leaning, like when it comes to that sort of stuff, like a little more liberal in that way. But I also want to hear other people's perspectives, especially from the conservative side too, because I know that more often than not, it comes from a place of like, not wanting to of like wanting to conserve like some values that I realized are also especially vital because you do not want to like divide people over that and say that their values are shit and also that sort of stuff because it's also important to hear from their perspective and see how we have commonalities from like the other side, finding the commonality again that which I wanted to talk about too, you know.
Are there any issues you feel strongly about?
Mhm. Um, I'm trying to think. I know that there's probably an issue that I'm feeling very strongly about, but it's not on the top of my head. Oh yeah, universal health care, but it's only coming from a place where like I wouldn't know too much about like the insurance like atmosphere and like everything that's going on to stop it from happening. But I do know that I feel like I do have this pretty strong conviction that I do think America can be compatible with like universal health care with especially with everything that's going on. It's just become very corporatized to the point where like you are kind of fighting against the corporates for that sort of stuff, mainly the corporates. But with that out of the side, when it comes to implementing it, I think it would require someone very competent to doing that, someone or an organization. But I have no doubt that it can be done pretty well. But at the same time, I'm coming from a place where I don't know too much about it.
So what I don't know if I mean you mentioned some strength. What would you say are your strengths in general?
Um, mm, I think perseverance, first of all, because I think from a very young age, I always had a feeling that you always can find a way around things. Like I think there was a flaw with with a lot of people's thinking where when they feel like they're not good at something, they just give up. I don't kind of give up, to be honest. I feel like there's always a way to do things. We just haven't explored it enough. That's kind of like my strength. And people say that I can be very inspiring too, because like I can be all of a sudden like talking about, giving off speeches that really do inspire people. They said I could possibly be a motivational speaker because of that, but um that's not really my interest, to be honest, but I do want the best for people and myself too, especially like to give inspirational advice and to inspire myself that I can do anything is possible as long as you put your mind to it. And that even when the world can be chaotic, you can always find your place in the chaos too. That sort of stuff. Like, and philosophy has really helped that because I think without philosophy, it was very hard to um find the truth in the things I feel like I would call strengths of myself, because philosophy kind of gives that justification, gives that clarity that like I feel like um helps me to express those strengths. Because yeah, I know that can be a little confusing to say, but you know, that's the best way I could put it. But if you want to get to know, I can kind of elaborate the best way I can.
Yeah, what does that mean exactly?
Um, so, uh, okay, how do I say it? So how, how like, you ever get, you, you know the feeling that, that feeling where like, you feel like, what if everything I know about is wrong? So I had that question in my mind, and, um, I always felt like, what if everything I knew was kind of wrong? What if this was wrong? So that's why I kind of like really started to, try to look into the reasoning for everything a little in a way. Um, it was hard because that happened when I was in college in the early years. I didn't really feel like I wanted to socialize with people as much as I used to, even though I was also very productive back in high school where I wasn't as social as I was. But finding the reasoning for everything, which was also kind of a pointless cause because I didn't know where I was trying to find the reason, what perspective I was trying to find the reason from. But then philosophy came into my life a little later on. And I feel like it really answered a lot of questions because philosophy, like some of the thought experiments that a lot of famous philosophers had, um, were already thoughts that I already had, and I felt like, wow, I'm not the only one who was thinking about this. And um, when you feel like you're not the only one who's thinking about certain things in life, then you feel a little more like, not an imposter, I guess. Like you don't feel like you're the only one who's thinking of certain things because people have already thought about it and clarified it too. And when it gives that sense of familiarity, you feel more confident about it. You feel more confident about your strengths in a way about that. Yeah, I hope that if you have any questions, let me know.
Okay. Were there any particular questions that stand out?
From you or like from philosophy.
Yeah, philosophy questions that you were thinking.
Um, yeah, I noticed that I can like for example, I kind of grew up in a religious background, and I always questioned religion, and I later on, like when I went to college, I questioned religion, and it didn't always rub the wrong, shoulders about that. But when I discovered through Descartes, for example, that when you when you realize that everybody has their own reason, even if it might not make sense to you, that help them navigate through life, it's best to, kind of just leave it be and just figure out your own. And I feel like that was a really huge insight for me because I was kind of attacking other people. I was kind of challenging other people's ideas without realizing what I was challenging. And it made me kind of humble myself too at the same time and realize that I don't have to keep attacking other people's I don't have to keep challenging like other people's perspectives so that they can improve. Sometimes it's gotta kind of be on them and I gotta focus on my own too because I know that I'm still, I have a lot of progress too. I have a lot of progress. I have a lot of things I have to still think through things before I do that to other people, I guess in a way, you know.
Mhm.
Hope I hope that how all of this kind of makes sense. It's really hard to externalize the internal monologue, you know.
Mhm. Oh. And are there any other uh well actually so okay, let's switch gears. So do you pay attention to your appearance much?
Sometimes yes, sometimes no. I would say 20% of my life, yes. 10 to 20% yes. 80 to 90% no. Um, I'm only like when people are talk about fashion sense, I don't really care about that sort of stuff. Although I think when I kind of have the money for it a little, I would probably kind of look into it too, because I know that people, yeah, like, people will kind of judge you based off of your appearance first. So I think it's kind of important to take that into consideration. But other than that, I really didn't really care about the fashion sense, but I did care about like lifting weights a little and looking kind of strong. There was that. That's, I guess, the only thing that makes an exception when it comes to whether I care about how I look or not.
Do you still lift weights?
Yeah. Yeah, I do.
Hmm.
Um, I uh I started caring a little bit about like sports and I guess my health a little recently too. Before that I wasn't really I didn't really care about it too much, but I realized I was taking up a lot of weight, so I needed to kind of lose that weight and I guess not feel insecure about myself even if that insecurity is a little small, you know.
Did you do sports early in your life?
Mountain biking briefly, but I was not fit for it. It's too challenging, like physically challenging.
Okay. So other than that, it was just after college. Or
Yeah, yeah.
okay. Um, do what about your environment? Do you care like how it looks, or do you try to make it, beautify it, or just keep it, organized, or is that difficult for you?
Mm, it's difficult for me to be honest. It's something I didn't really care about too, like beautifying my environment or because I always had like even right now I have a messy bed. I have like a pretty messy table, but I realized like not too long ago that if I live in a pretty messy environment, it does kind of like mess up my mental health too. So I realized that I do have to at the very least put some basic care into it. So, but it's very difficult, I would say, because it's not really something I'm natural at, you know. But I do know it really does affect my mental health because I especially experienced that when I was in college, when I had my own dorm room and I was kind of responsible for the cleanliness of it and all, and I wasn't really putting much stock into it until until it was too late, in the end, and I realized I needed to kind of really start to lock in, kind of on my cleaning up and everything after myself.
So, I guess actually, I wanted to go back to the career path thing again. So, like, you say you wanted to get like maybe a master's or a doctorate degree, right?
Yeah.
So, what is there anything past that? Like, do you want to be a therapist or, a researcher? What kind of?
Um, yeah, I do, but um. It's complicated to say because I know that like I said, the future is very uncertain. And I kind of want to, you know, figure it out as I go. But I know that I will probably become a psychologist, a therapist probably later down the road, like someone who does like assessments and tests. But I want to kind of, like I said, tie it back to like traveling the world and all. And I felt like one of the things I kind of researched was something called, I think, a cultural psychologist that probably has possibility of, becoming stronger and I guess like growing in the future, where they like conduct like field experiments and like have interviews with like people from various backgrounds. So I feel like if I could find a way to tie that back with traveling the world and like going to other cultures and getting to know other people's experiences and getting to know other, like I guess like exotic cultures and take note of that and like um figure out some research questions some and prove like I guess hypotheses that would be something very very interesting that I would want to do. It's like something that involves exploration and all.
It almost sounds like you're talking about being an anthropologist. Have you ever looked into that?
Yeah, I was very interested in like when I first took an anthropology class, that was very interesting. I was like, wow, this is so interesting. If psychologist wasn't something I consider possibly an anthropologist, I would have considered next.
Mm. All right. So are you like working now that you graduated or
Yeah. I'm applying for a college essay, so I'm not really working per se. The only thing I would
Mhm.
say is that um after I submit my essays, I will probably work again, but I will probably apply to like research positions only because I feel like it would be helpful if I do get into a doctoral program or a master's program, which will be focused on like research and all, you know, getting familiar with it.
what kind of work experience do you have?
Um, mostly mostly clinical, like medical scribing, working with kids who are diagnosed autism and teaching them like ABA therapy interventions, that sort of stuff. It's like kind of like building functional life skills because they're diagnosed with autism, so it's very hard for them to like socialize with other kids. So kind of teaching them the basics of building up social skills, that sort of stuff.
You said being a medical scribe.
Yeah, that was back then when I was on the pre-med track, but obviously I'm not doing that anymore. I didn't feel like it was for me, especially after I was doing this medical scribing and all. It was too fast-paced for me. I can't handle like fast-paced environments.
What about working with kids? How was that?
I really enjoyed it, to be honest. I really enjoyed it. I just feel like I had to be careful because sometimes I guess like I forget like being professional about it because I guess like I I talk with the kid more, the kid really likes me, but I guess like I you know I would forget to do what I have to do, like tasks, for example, and just focus on kind of go off tangent with like what the work demands me to do, that sort of stuff, you know.
Okay.
Like for example, like when I went to the family home, I think they really liked my company, and there was an older sister of the kid that I was supposed to kind of do my job in, and the older sister kind of wanted my help on some homework, and I guess I should have said no there because it was not my job to do her work for her, but I guess I kind of accepted it low key and helped her out, but it was kind of wasting time too at the same time.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that makes sense. Um, oh yeah, you mentioned like I think it was trading or like,
Yeah.
investing. Have you looked into that at all?
Yeah, I did. I'm currently figuring out some strategies to make money on the stock market, I guess.
Well,
Yeah. Was there something particularly you want to know
uh,
about that?
I guess, like, so I don't know. Can you tell me like why you're interested in investing? Like,
Well, I guess to have financial independence because I kind of wanted to
okay,
have I don't really want to work a 9 to 5. I want to kind of be flexible about my schedule in the future. I don't want to, like if my parents say, "Why aren't you working?" Like I have enough money to, feed myself and live under a roof. I don't need to work for that. I can kind of just define the schedule as I want it to be, that sort of stuff.
yeah, for sure. Do
Yeah.
you think you would be interested in starting a business?
Maybe, maybe. I think it might tie back to the initiative that I was talking about earlier, but
Mhm.
it really depends, I guess.
Okay. All right, I think I have a good idea of your type now.
Okay.
So I think you're ILE.
ILE.
Yeah.
Oh, that's interesting. So,
So go
oh,
ahead.
can you explain why that's the case?
Yeah. Yeah, so basically like there was a lot of extrovert intuition. First of all, like you have a very wide breadth of kind of like things you're interested in. There's like philosophy, psychology, and you mentioned like it's hard for you to like narrow it down and focus on just one thing. And
Yeah,
yeah, you just seem like a very optimistic and expansive person. And you said like you said how like you don't people they just when they're not good at something they just give up. But you have this attitude that you can always find a way to do something.
yeah,
Yeah, that's a common theme I think with ILEs and types with high NE. And
yeah,
and your interest in, exploring other cultures and, perspectives. I guess it's maybe more typical of deltas usually, but it can definitely be an
oh yeah,
ILE thing too. Um, and I think you are just like very intellectually curious. The main other types I was considering were actually EIE and ESE. But
mm,
I think it's hard to see you as an SE valuing type. Like, you said you are sort of averse to conflict, and
yeah,
I think I think overall you talked a lot about wanting to be like inclusive of people and not alienating them and like you said you sort of keep a lid on your political views in with people you
yeah,
don't know and even like I mean your views are like you said, you tend more towards like a moderate, kind of centrist way of uh, doing things where you can like see the other side. You're not going to like fight with, someone who's on, the other side. It's more
no,
of a beta type thing.
yeah,
Yeah, I mean, there were some things I do think you're very clearly FE valuing. I did not. Yeah, I don't think I really considered like IEE too much because you said like, there's this you're a little bit, pushy or like, sort of you
yeah, I
don't
can,
really personal boundaries are not really a thing for you.
yeah,
Giving unsolicited advice, is one thing that is more common with, FE valuing types. And can kind of offend people. It could be that's kind of the FI vulnerable. Could be
hmm
ignoring also. Yeah, but I mean ESE, it's like I didn't really see a lot of evidence that you're actually focused on. I mean, you do. I think you do seem a little bit unusually personable for an ILE, maybe. You could argue
yeah,
that maybe it's a little unusual. Like, you are pretty charismatic, I think, and kind of, just good with people. But I
yeah,
think the focus is still more on the sort of intellectual arena. And
yeah.
yeah, like, does that make sense?
Yeah, it kind of makes sense. What I would say is that like with the particularly being friendly and like being jovial about with people, I was not like that before. I was like very socially awkward back then. I would say
Mm.
because I was being socially awkward. If you had done the didn't done this session back then when I was like very socially awkward, I would have given off a lot more introverted, like a vibe, I guess you would say. And it was only through a lot of like figuring myself out, especially and just going out there and just meeting with people that has made me who I am. Um, but yeah, it's one thing I would say is that you would probably be meeting quite a different person if you were meeting me back then. I think, at least in my opinion, at least because I have changed a lot recently too, especially with the pandemic going on and just realizing some things. One thing I want to say though is that you might think that I'm like very optimistic, but I like to think of myself as optimistic and I like to give off that image too, like that vibe. But I can be like when you get to really know me, I can be very what do you call it? Like um realistic sometimes. Like I can try to be like, oh, but I know it's cool and all, but like can't don't we think we need to factor in X thing for Y thing? Like that sort of stuff. Like it can be kind of like that, you know? Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, yeah, even ILEs are not, they're not positive all the time. Like,
Yeah.
nobody's really like that. I mean, maybe ESCs are a little
Yeah.
bit more kind of delusionally positive, you could say.
Yeah. What's it called? I also I don't think it would disqualify me, but like I think like what back then when I was like in my early years of college, I did actually feel like I was also in a bit of a depressive phase where I didn't really feel like I wanted to go out as much. I just wanted to stay in my room and just eat food and just watch movies. I didn't really care about like people as much until I realized it was, I was just in a pretty bad feedback loop where like I was just stuck in this like rut where I was just like not going out to people and only making it worse. And I realized I had to make a change. And New Zealand was one of those changes that I wanted to make that I felt like I had to make because of where I was in my life, that sort of stuff.
Okay, yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, I think you tend to, I mean, you can see any bases and some like extrovert intuitive types, I guess they can sort of, yeah, sometimes get in a rut where they're more introverted or reclusive, I guess. But I mean, yeah, that can happen to a lot of different types, I guess.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I gotcha.
Any
Just
other
what, uh,
questions?
mm, what made you think, what made you disqualify EIE, actually, I would say.
EIE, yeah, it was mostly just about your um it was mostly just about the attitude towards conflict. Like I didn't really see you like I don't know if I could rule it out 100%, but I do think yeah, you're more focused on being inclusive and accommodating to people in a way that EIEs aren't really. They're more they're trying to, typically they're going to be trying to, make an impact on people, I think. And yeah, I just didn't see you really trying to I mean, I asked you if you like try to challenge people, and I just didn't get the impression that you do that in any kind of I guess controversial way. But yeah, I mean, it is an alternative. I think it's a reasonable alternative, basically.
I gotcha. I think um I know that I think I kind of read your site a little, and I know you don't really consider subtypes that much, but what do you think is the subtype of I guess ILE, would you say, or is that hard to say, or you don't believe in
Yeah,
that sort of stuff?
I mean, I don't think about subtypes at all, so I
Oh,
wouldn't even
really?
know where to start with that
Uh,
question. Yeah.
I gotcha. I
Because
gotcha.
it's like there's different subtype theories. I don't have like a preference for any of them. So,
For sure, for sure, for sure.
but I would say that there's people that people have an emphasis sometimes on different functions, and if you are ILE, then I think you're one of those ILEs that has more of an emphasis on the mobilizing function on the FE.
Okay.
I think your TI was a little bit harder to see. Like
Yeah.
that's why I was mostly considering FE. I was also considering FE base, yeah, and yeah, I think it was. And yeah, correspondingly, I think the TI was sort of less visible. So,
Yeah. And what would you say about like my NI? Because I felt like I also have like I took like socionics test a little in like like social type for example. They actually gave me IEI because they thought that I had a very high NI. And I kind of agree to be honest because I if I really like focus on something, like for example, like I'm gonna reach this place in X amount of time, I more often than not, I'm kind of right about that. Like for example. And also like I'm not really good with like a world like I don't really give predictions because the world is too complicated for, making predictions, so I don't really care about that. But um I do really, really like and I'm really fascinated with like NI related subjects. Like mysticism, like um I would say metaphysics, like philosophy being one of them. So what would you say about that actually?
well, I guess metaphysics and mysticism, like, yeah, metaphysics has a big TI component too. I need to know more specifics, but uh, I guess
Yeah.
I like, yeah, you like you just said, the world is too complicated to predict. Like that's, also you said earlier, like I asked you, what you have planned for your future, and you're like, I'm just kind of leaving it open-ended. You can't really predict the future. So,
Yeah.
that's kind of like the and I ignoring part, I would say.
Oh, that makes
But
a lot of sense, to be
yeah, I mean,
honest.
but yeah, we do have some access to the ignoring function. It's not like, but it's something that's more private, we just don't talk about it as much, we might think about it more privately. Yeah.
And okay, I guess that makes a lot of sense, to be honest. You have a point about that. What about like my I heard that ILEs can be very good with TE because they're TE demonstrative. Do you
hmm
know
hmm
if that comes out like I guess with what I talk about?
Yeah, sure. So like when you're talking about, I guess like the investing and, things like that, it seems like that I think to me it suggests some confidence with, sort of being competent and researching information that's going to be useful to you somehow. And
Yeah.
yeah, I guess I yeah though it was more, I didn't weren't a lot of
I think
specific
one thing
things.
I would say is that um investing in like trading and stocks, it felt more like something I have to do, not something I'm like really I liked doing. It's like something I kind of like when I was starting with it, I was like, oh my God, this is kind of boring to be honest. Like, I don't really care about this. But at the same time, I think something told me you gotta push through because you want to kind of like not get stuck in a 9 to 5 in the future. You want to kind of have the freedom to do anything you want. And I feel like money kind of can solve a lot of problems you probably have in the future. And it was just something I pushed through. And, my other relationship that I was also in, like the bad relationship, she kind of knew a lot about trading stuff. So I kind of learned more from her rather than from myself. So it's more like an accidental thing rather than something out of genuine curiosity or anything of the sort. I just do it because I'm trying to, it's like a means to an end rather than the end itself, that sort of stuff.
Okay, I see.
Yeah. So
Y-
I don't know
Yeah,
if that's though. Yeah.
I guess I didn't see a ton of evidence of TE, if I'm being honest.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah. So so yeah, I'll write more in the report, give you a more
Yeah.
comprehensive argument. So
Gotcha.
all right, anything else or you good?
No, I think that's all. I hope I'm not keeping you too long. I just
No,
have a
no, no
lot of
problem.
questions. That's why.
No problem. Yeah, feel free to message me later.
For sure. For sure, for
All right.
sure. All
All
right.
right.